The energy of the water and the energy of the fire, the two most greatest power of all time. I want you to relax, feel good, and so far everything's going good. We'll keep it that way. I know we will. I'm chucking this on just to sort of smoke the thing up a bit, make people feel all right. Chews away some bugs and things as well. It does a lot of things. This is the whole wattle that's in this creek. We call this a mantara. You can smell that thing there. Feel like having a whiff a bit. And it's more than just a fire, boiling a cup of tea, cooking a feed and that on as well. But this here now is the totem. This fire stick and the fire is the totem and it's the big boss of this country. Not only symbolises and represents the landmarks and our people fit in, but it also marks territories and areas of this land. So the fire dreaming is the Arabunna Mine, the big ones. There's a lot of other things that fits in and links in it as well. And a lot of this area around here in creation time was actually created by this here, exactly what we're doing here now. All right, I want to share that from the Arabunna people. All right?
Thank you for your time, William.
And this is why, with the native title stuff as well, and all this stuff, this one here is our thing. This is ours. You can show us home, you can take us home. This is our mother, our father, this is us. This is everybody. My mind goes back drifting to the days when I was young. Of how we walked this country, just living off the land. And when I'm far away from there, things just ain't the same. That's when I hear something calling me back home. Right, join in there. You got all these bores, springs, all the way. Round here too, up here, all these things, all right around here. Got them in here too. For too long from this place where I belong.
Yeah, they got an ibis still.
Yeah. Glossy ibis?
Yeah.
Oh, you should see them.
Calling me back home.
But there's terns, there's glossy ibis, we just noticed. There's a whole lot of doctorals that have flown off. And yeah, those ones there must be ducks.
Where's Melbourne Station? Is that
That's
up there?
it, yeah.
So they're bringing it somewhere back here. Somewhere a bit further over from here. Straight I can't see where Albury is. Straight to...
There's Albury again.
Right, they go bringing it straight there to wherever Roxby is now.
Roxby down there.
And the other one they take, Warfield, the first one, taking it from about here.
Quite a reasonable network.
They're getting it from here, that way and that way.
All right. And this spring we're at now, you reckon the pressure has dropped here?
Completely.
Something enormous in the last 2 years.
And that was hot. You couldn't hold it. Even not only because of the hot, but you couldn't hold it because of
The pressure.
Right. Just a squirt water.
That's just not there anymore.
So for sure it's
So the whole pressure's dropping in the whole area.
completely,
Wellfield, yeah.
Is the basin a lake or is it just a lightweight rock under this?
It's different
weight
layers
pressure?
of sandstone.
Sandstone,
Yeah.
which is water.
Which water's passing through it. But like it only travels, a couple of metres a year. It takes 2 million years to come down from Queensland. And what happened here, they're putting in a test bore but the casing broke and it just was uncontrolled water coming out. They nearly lost their drilling rig here, and that was in 1986, and it just flowed for 9 years.
Can you estimate how much water was lost in that time?
Oh no, there was millions of litres was flowing out each day. There was a hole, you know, this wide here, about that wide, and it's just flowing
blasting out, filling up.
So what you're looking at now used to be a wetlands, and so now we've just got two flowing parts here and the bit we looked at over there. It doesn't form a creek anymore, and you've got reeds growing up where there's still water, where there's still soaks, but not enough water's coming out for it to flow. And the disturbing thing is that Stewart Creek Station has just recently been bought by WMC.
Twice the value too.
Twice the value, was it? Well, I know that Aboriginal groups were really interested in Stewart Creek and were making inquiries to see whether there were ways that they could buy Stewart Creek, because there's a lot of significant places there, and if they can buy up their traditional lands, it's a way of creating employment for themselves and also keeping that close connection. But WMC have bought Stewart Creek now. If you were a pastoralist that owned Stewart Creek Station, I'd imagine that you'd worry about your water supply, but now WMC are the pastoralist. It's what they do will be hidden. There's no one there to complain.
The pattern that they're buying up Stewart Creek is very disturbing in a lot of ways, because they've now owned the Purple Downs, the Roxby Downs lease, the Andamuka lease, Stewart Creek. So they're just buying up big blocks of land right around where all the springs are, and it's very dangerous.
Who's going to monitor them? There's no independent monitoring of WMC. The indenture doesn't allow for independent monitoring. They do all their own monitoring. They only have to report to the state and federal government, and independent monitoring can be done at a local level through a local community, but now they're buying up that local community as well.
They've got perfect control over it then. Yeah, they don't have to worry about native title, and they can completely ignore the deep concerns there about a community then.
See this whole country here, this whole country, and there's a lot of areas, but this area here, what we talk about, is very significant, very powerful and very big for us. Now, these springs, a lot of these springs are sacred ones, and a lot of these springs are all tied in with this whole area, this lake here.
Have they asked you at all about putting the pipelines in or putting the bores in? Western Mining talked to you at all about that?
None of that.
Oh yeah.
No, we never had anything to do even at the beginning of that. The first at the start.
Until 1986, all of our water came down by truck on a daily basis. In 1986, the pipeline was put in. It's a 14 megalitre pipeline, and 5 megalitres of that water is used throughout the town a day. The rest is used through the mine and metallurgical plant. You may be aware there is a $1.48 billion expansion taking place throughout the mine, the metallurgical plant and the town.
If all the expansions go ahead in the next 20 years, it will supply 12% of the world's uranium.
Roxby?
12 to 14%. 12's modest. The mine also has a life of 120 years.
So they expect. I mean, they've got a massive ore body, so they can essentially keep going until they decide it's time to stop or whatever, you know.
So we're looking at a huge giant, and just the responsibility of us as Australians to make sure that doesn't happen is enormous.
Women said this morning one of their major concerns was that the mining company is using all the water, and soon there'll be nothing left for Anangu, no water left for Aboriginal people. They're worried about the bush tucker in this area. Before you could come and hunt, there'd be kangaroos, there'd be sleepy lizards, everything. But there's hardly anything today. They came here because they were concerned about the Seven Sister Dreaming, Seven Sister Dripper, because that Seven Sister Dreaming is important all over the country, including places like Melbourne. The Seven Sister Dreaming belongs there. Seven Sister Dreaming is really important here.
The skips here haul 9 tonnes of ore 400 metres to the surface every 60 to 70 seconds. The ore is dropped onto the conveyor and you can see...
Women's country, and it's really important that people know what's happening here. That main shaft goes through a very, very significant site.
Is this a protected site here?
There are ethnographic sites on the mine lease, yeah, but we have respected those and we haven't developed in areas where Aborigines have asked us not to.
Culturally, when you come out to country and you want to know something, you've got to give something in return. Culturally, you cannot come and expect to know the special stories about a place just like that.
So you're saying that there is no mine shaft on any sacred Aboriginal sites?
Every site that has been brought, that we've been advised is of significance to Aborigines, has been protected.
Yeah, this is a uranium drilling rig. We thought we'd knock up one, dig down a bit here and see if we can find any yellow cake. Apparently it's worth lots of money and they like selling it, and we're a bit short of cash, so we thought we'd give it a go. Actually, it's going to be a flower. A steel flower blossoming in the Radlands.
This next song is a celebration of chai, that everyone should go up and buy chai. So the song is called Buy Chai Now. This is for Steve and his soy milk collection. I think we're going to decide to play Buy Chai Now in the chord of A. So Joel, you start playing fast and we'll say Buy Chai Now.
Buy Chai now! Buy Chai now! Buy Chai now! Buy Chai now! So you got the message?
Fight the state with Anarchist Chai.
This mine was set up by a special act of Parliament that's called the Roxby Downs Indenture Act, and it means that the company can do almost whatever it likes.
It overrides all environmental, Aboriginal and health acts in South Australia.
In other words, the regulation of the mine is done completely under secret and under legislation in that between the South Australian government and Roxby Downs. So there's no public access to that.
Look, you're assuming that there is a negligent approach to looking after things like tailing systems.
I mean, that's a common question I get asked from all groups is, how dangerous is your tailings? How do you manage it? And what's the short, medium and long-term fate of the tailings? When the mine closes, it gets rehabilitated to the to the level, to the standard. Thank you. To the standard that is appropriate by the government. They say yes, that is appropriate. You're finished. Because ultimately the state becomes responsible for it.
When the mine opened and the tailings retention system was first set up, that right from the very beginning that tailings retention system leaked into the aquifer below, and that was a secret for 4 years. It was 4 years before it came public.
Have you had any problems with the tailings? Have you had any leakage, seepage?
There was a seepage incident which WMC announced publicly 3 years ago.
It's about 3 gigalitres. 3,000 megalitres. Yeah. And that's what we've spent the last few years.
Could you put it in litres rather than in a...
It's 3,000 million litres.
3,000 million litres.
Now, environmentalists had been coming up here at that time and visiting the tailings dam, and we knew from reading the EIS that that the tailings system was a dry system. But every time we went there, there was this huge pool of water in the centre of the tailings dam. In fact, sometimes the water lapped right up to the edge. So we knew that the system wasn't running according to the EIS. But what we didn't know, that by a process called a project notice, that the company had changed the way the tailings system was going to operate.
How big will the tailings dam be?
At current rates, or finally, we're looking at about 1,000 hectares.
Yeah, and how high?
30 metres.
And how radioactive is the material?
80% of the ore.
What's the responsibility for that long-term management going to be with the government, though?
Well, I guess we're talking about hundreds of years into the future. That's what you're talking about, I assume. Well. I mean, can we say that WMC is going to be around and we're always going to have government of some form, but we may not necessarily have WMC. I mean, there has to be some sort of arrangement that the public can have confidence in terms of monitoring what happens here in the future.
A tailings dam that you've covered with rock, which will erode away in a couple of thousand years, is bad enough, but you think you've got a nuclear reactor, a set of 4 nuclear reactors sitting there with its all the plant and equipment. What do you do with that? All you can do is, maybe like they've done at Chernobyl, is encase it in concrete. And you've got to look after that casing. You've got to look after that casing for as long as those materials are radioactive, which in the case of plutonium is 240,000 years. This civilization has lasted what? When were the Phoenicians roaming around? 8,000 years ago? Egyptians, 6,000 years ago, 8,000 years ago. The Greeks, the Romans, 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. But if we stop it now, it'll be better than stopping it in 10 years' time, or 20 years' time, or 50 years' time, or 120 years' time, which is the life of the Roxby Uranium Mine.
Comes from Montenegro.
Why?
Because the seas there are very, very dirty. And I come to look at this sea, and my baby's got 2 dorsal fins. See, 2 dorsal fins, and he can only swim round in circles. I have to carry him. And it's because of the radiations in the sea. And I come here to this clean sea to ask you humans to stop putting shit in the water, please. Thank you. An invoice to Western Mining for present and future inhabitants of the Earth. Nuclear waste, local and international. Diesel fuel subsidies, cost to traditional owners, workers and community health. The total cost is priceless. We demand that the operations manager purse and gives us a signed receipt. And we intend to stay until we have it.
We are the future, in big block letters. Oh, just to protest against the uranium mining. It's just polluting our earth.
You think you're going to be able to stop them?
I reckon we can. Definitely.
Signing this, what I'm doing is acknowledging that I've received this invoice.
Everybody's talking about buses and losses and profits, and that's a load of...
You said you were proud of the environmental record of this dam. Are you also proud of the toxic legacy that you're going to be leaving?
As I said, I'm proud of the environmental performance of this operation.
So you're proud of what's going to be left for future generations for the next 250,000 years?
I don't intend engaging in polemic with you here today. You have your opinion, and you're welcome to express it. That's as far as it goes.
Don't think we're intimidated by your camera.
Australia has 40% of the world's uranium, and that's a responsibility on Australians to keep that uranium in the ground.
It's not every day you can stop a big metal frame that's to do with a metallurgy plant connected to a uranium mine to stop it in its tracks.
I'm one of the researchers who's currently funded by the Centers for Disease Control to study American workers in the nuclear industry. These were government workers involved in the Manhattan Project. We've been studying them to assess the effects of long-term, low-level exposure to radiation. Workers in the U.S., what we found recently is that they're experiencing significant increases in cancer death rates from extremely low levels of radiation. We're talking about something in the range of 1/2 of the current occupational standard for Australian workers.
They monitor all. Everyone's got personal badges they wear for radiation and gamma rays and alpha rays and what's the other ones? Radon daughters and all the rest of it. Yeah, they monitor it pretty well, and we get a report back every year or two on how we go.
Mining is a dangerous job to start with, and uranium mining is particularly dangerous because you're being exposed both externally and internally to radiation. And I think it's fair to tell those workers they face a significant risk of cancer death later in life.
Take the proper precautions and use the proper safety equipment which everyone's issued under there. Should have no problems.
And then we have more general concern about the public. I work in the School of Public Health. So it's not only concern about pulling the uranium up out of the ground here, it's that you're packing it off to the United States, and people there are getting exposed. The communities I work with there are the recipients of the uranium dug out of the earth here.
4% of the world's electricity is generated by nuclear power. It's the most expensive way of producing power, and the waste from that production of power, nobody knows how to manage it. It's effective. You can quote figures like 250,000 years and things like that, but that material, as far as we're concerned, is permanently unmanageable. And of course, then there's the weapons argument and all the associated dangers to humanity that come from uranium ore.
They've got a contract that says it's not going to be used for warfare or anything like that. It's going to be used for proper energy sources.
What about stuff like these things, Chernobyl and storage of nuclear waste when it comes out of reactors?
Oh, we were a bit more smarter than what Russia are, I reckon. We can monitor it and look after it more carefully and everything.
But what about the Russians? What about all the nuclear reactors they've still got going over there?
Don't know, all got in the papers these days is about Adelaide crows.
This is a substance that cannot be controlled by human beings. We have not yet found the technology or the way of dealing with uranium. It's highly radioactive, it's continually dangerous, and it's long living for generations. And naturally people all around the world are going to be deeply concerned about that, because no one wants to see the planet die, you know? No one wants to see kids get...
That's right. No, nobody does, I agree with that. But I mean, who can control cars? Who can control plane crashes? Who can control all other things that contribute to death?
There's no good solution to what you do with the waste. I'd say the best recommendation we could probably do is put it someplace public where it's going to be watched. It's going to sit there and it's going to be a monument to the stupidity of our generation, that we're producing something we don't know how to get rid of, and something that's clearly endangering the health of ourselves and the health of our children and their children's children. Historically, this industry has lied to the workers and it's lied to the public. I mean, it's never been forthcoming about the environmental releases that have come out of their facilities, and I know there have been problems here with the tailings, and it's never been honest to the workers about the magnitude of exposure they're receiving. And then you get to a second question, they've always understated what the risks of that are. And so you see the current international regulations for exposure to radiation going down and down. And I'd say there's still an order of magnitude that's 10 times too high. The experience of workers in the U.S. nuclear weapons facilities is that very low levels of radiation are leading to measurable increases in cancer deaths. They can quibble about if they're operating within laws and that makes it a moral activity or not.
Feel the love that you can feel from the hands of the people around you. Just for a moment. Feel it come into the centre. Into like one big heart.
Just relaxing and debriefing and chatting about what the action has been, what it has meant to them, loosening their bodies, loosening themselves, and now they're moving off.
Well, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that we were having some influence and doing in some way protecting them. I think witnessing is a very old tradition of protest. And that joined with other methods of protests does eventually, something happens. It's like the 100th monkey, learning to do something. You teach 99 monkeys and it's a really arduous thing for each monkey to learn the task, But once you've taught the 100th monkey, or once the 100th monkey learns how to do the task, it becomes something that they all know by nature.
Yeah. But what was fascinating was that the population of monkeys on the neighbouring island started doing it as well. So I don't think it's so much that the 100th monkey does it. I think as soon as 100 monkeys are doing it, the other 300,000 are going to start doing it wherever they are. It's a telepathic thing.
But the birds were everywhere. You had to be careful where you walk because you might be disturbing nests and things. And we got swooped by plovers, and it was a really exciting time to come out here and looking at the birds because the plover's chasing the crow away now. Telling people is what it's all about, spreading it around that what's happening here. You can read about it, but there's nothing more powerful coming and looking at it.
I hope that's what we're going for as a population of a planet here, is amassing our consciousness into one coalesced blob. Then we can win.
Right, join in there. Yeah, Lake Air is calling me back home. I've been gone for too long from this place where I belong. I can hear that old man calling me back home. Yeah, Lake is calling me back home. Yeah, Lake is calling me back home.
Like the vegetables, I don't like uranium and all its evils. I want to live in a nuclear-free society. No uranium, no uranium, no uranium. Stop
You're all aiding and abetting genocide.
Now, could you come back this way,
Please. Thank you.
But anybody who comes in here, must go through an induction of safety into the building. You people have not done that. Therefore, what you're doing is unsafe because your knowledge is not right. Now, we have a responsibility.
If you're talking about safety, what about the safety of your workers, the safety of the planet?
Take the left room.
If you come with us, because we'd like to talk to you.
You're not going to capture me, my office.
No, we'd like to talk to you about what you're doing with uranium mining in Roxby against the wishes of the Arabunna people and against the wishes of the majority of Australians in propagating the uranium industry, which is poisonous.
Come into the office on the left here, and we'll take this.
He's not doing anything wrong. He's just rather concerned about the water.
About the uranium. People.
Let's talk about this painting you got down here.
Sacred Aboriginal sites.
Do you think what you're doing is right with Roxby Downs? Do you think that's correct?
Let's talk. You're a war criminal, mate.
Don't touch me.